Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men Volume 2, Number 5, cover dated February 1992. And of all of Jim Lee's covers on adjectiveless X-Men, this is my favorite. This is a truly dynamic cover featuring Wolverine going at it with Omega Red. Omega Red just introduced for the first time at the end of the previous issue, and this is a ferocious cover of the pair of these old enemies just going at it hell for leather on the cover. And you can see all the damage that has been done to Logan with his claws exposed here, the housings for his claws in his forearm, and even a bit of flesh missing there from his skull. You can see the adamantium infused skull there, and the costume shredded and surrounded and gripped by Omega Red's tentacles. It's an excellent cover. The only criticism I have of it is the colouring. The colouring looks like it was a bit rushed, but an amazing cover, and one that I have a t-shirt of. And very happy with that t-shirt. So let's open this one up to the, and just last thing to note, it's Jim Lee and inked by Scott Williams. So let's open this one up to the first page. We don't get a splash page to begin with. Instead, we have our title of the story, Blowback, and we have the creative team here. Jim Lee in first position as plotter and penciler of the issue. John Byrne there with the script, so he's providing the words. Scott Williams, art, T-Bear, Bob Wycheck, and Joe Rubenstein credited with inks. What that means is that this thing was rushed to get to the printers. And this is John Byrne's last issue scripting over Jim Lee's plots. And the reason for that is that Byrne got fed up with receiving the pages from Jim Lee late and out of order for the issue. He found it a massive headache trying to script the thing, trying to make sense of the pages he was getting. And basically he quit after this issue, and he quit also around the same time from scripting Uncanny X-Men over Will Spartacio's plots. We also have a double credit for the lettering. That's Tom Orzechowski and his wife Lois Bohalis. And again, that's another indicator that this was a rush job trying to get this issue to the printers. And Joe Rosas on colouring throughout. So it opens with shots of the war room underneath the X-Mansion, and that war room designed by Jim Lee, so he knows it well in order to draw it. And we're getting a computer readout from Cerebro of an unidentified mutant in the vicinity of the domain, Professor X's domain. And so here we've got Forge running, and he commands Cerebro to go to voice activation and to give a report, which he receives. Now this is a great few panels on this particular page. It's not quite a full double page spread, but this panel, like going from one page to the next, really excellent with Forge there in the chair and all of the wiring and equipment around him. It's really well done. The perspective, the foreshortening is excellent. Cyclops running in to find out what's going on, and Psylocke arriving from laps in the pool, and Colossus 2 arriving. So Cyclops is all action here, ordering them to get to the Blackbird. He says, in terms of the psychic distress signal that Psylocke has been picking up, it's got to be Hank, Rogue, Gambit, and the others, according to the readout on Cerebro's main screen. This manifestation, that's this unidentified mutant signal, is right on the road they took to get to town. Come on, X-Men, to the Blackbird, double time. So we get a couple of these slender panels here of the Blackbird taking off. And interesting, in John Byrne's third-person exposition, we learn that the Blackbird employs sonic dampers, which mute the thunder of the jet engines. And this, of course, would be to not disturb the neighbors in the area regarding the existence of a supersonic jet in that is hangared beneath the ground of Professor X's domain. And we can see the X-Mansion itself there in black in the background, because this is happening at night. We've got the moon there also to indicate the time as well. So out on the road, on their way into Salem Center, we've got a couple of ambulances, and aboard one of them we have got Beast, Rogue, Jubilee, and Gambit, and they're unconscious, except Gambit isn't. So he charges up his ace of spades, tells the others to close their eyes, and boom, blast them out of the back of the ambulance, and Jubilee then uses her powers against the drivers as well. So this page still inked by Scott Williams. I'll point out the moment in the issue when we move beyond the Scott Williams inks. Not yet, because actually just before I move on from this page, I've seen this one. I've seen the original art scan for this one in, if I'm not mistaken, I've definitely seen it online, but I also think it's in the IDW Jim Lee artist edition of the X-Men pages. I think I've seen it there as well. So this is a pretty action-packed page of Beast ripping through the back of the ambulance behind the driver's seat, grabbing the driver, Jubilee using her mutant power to blind this guy here, Rogue smashing out of the roof of the ambulance, taking on the ninjas, the hand ninjas in the back of the ambulance that's ahead of them, where they think that Wolverine is being kept, and that ambulance goes off the road and it's about to explode. Well, no, it's still moving on. Actually, that was a little bit unclear there in the storytelling, the art, but the Blackbird hovers right above it. The sonic dampers are off in John Byrne's narration. The scream of the jet presses against the fleeing van as a physical force. I always like that piece of narration from Byrne. So Psylocke is flying the Blackbird in order to give an opportunity to Cyclops and Colossus to jump out. And this is a very cool anchor image here of Colossus. It reminds me of the cool anchor image of him doing something similar in X-Men #1. Again, these couple of pages very much inked by Scott Williams. It's distinctive of his style. So Colossus drops through the roof of that ambulance. Cyclops drops down on the bonnet and uses his optic blast against the driver. So everybody's down, and Cyclops asks Psylocke to scan for any more in the back of the ambulance. Negative, Cyclops, all. Wait, no, a precognitive flash. Scott, Peter, get out of there, because this guy's running for a detonator switch and blows up the ambulance with everybody aboard. So Cyclops managed to get off in time, and I like this little bit here where Beast says there's no way this blast could have hurt him regarding Colossus, just no way, and then very quietly says, come on, you big dumb Russian, don't make a liar out of me. And this is a great little panel. So look at all the detail here of Colossus emerging from that inferno of the exploded ambulance. Nice lighting on his figure as well. Good combination of the spotting of blacks and the colors by Joe Rosas. And Colossus all business. Cyclops, Beast, I found something. And it's Wolverine's mask, but it's his brown and orange mask. So Cyclops here says Wolverine's mask, but he didn't have it on when he left the mansion, and he didn't in the previous issue. Did he have his uniform with him, or is this some kind of red herring? Now, we saw in the previous issue that he did have a uniform under his civilian clothes, and that was his yellow and blue costume, but this is the brown and orange one. This is the one that John Byrne designed for Wolverine, so that was left in the ambulance. And for Cyclops, that's a little bit of a mystery. This is a very nice panel here with great detail on all the X-Men characters, including Beast there and Jubilee. Yeah, great fine attention to detail. So Cyclops says, let's head back to the mansion. We need Professor X. And then the scene switches where Logan, well, he doesn't know where he is, but he's out in the snow and he's being attacked by Omega Red. And I'm not 100% sure if this page is inked by Scott Williams. I'm going to say it is, but I think he's probably under a little bit of time pressure on this particular page, it seems to me. But there's a nice panel here of Wolverine lashing out at Omega Red, an interesting upshot of the back of Omega Red there. And here in a control room, we have an audience for the fight. And someone says, extraordinary, he still fights. Another would have been dead long ago. Still not much longer now, I should think. No, there you see, Omega Red has gained the upper hand. So the audience there for the fight, they're wondering to see, is Omega Red going to beat Logan or not? This is a nice little panel here, and this is like one of Jim Lee's tricks that I often point out, a borderless panel just to diversify the layout on a page, make it interesting. This one working very well here at the end of the page. And now we see who's watching the screen here of the fight. And this character is a familiar one to readers of Marvel Comics Presents, because he was last seen in Weapon X, in Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X. He's the Doctor, Dr. Cornelius. And he's here in the company of Matsuo, Tsurayaba, and the Fenris twins, Andrea and Andreas von Strucker. So they're watching the fight with great interest and attention. This is a nice anchor image here of Omega Red getting the upper hand on Wolverine, knocking him to the ground and unconscious, and a great top-down shot here as well as Wolverine goes unconscious, and Omega Red just stands there gloating over the knocked out figure of Wolverine. Through a blood red haze, Wolverine remembers. The mutant known as Wolverine looks up at the face of the one who has defeated him and remembers. And this is another one of Jim Lee's devices where you get a kind of tumbling series of narrowing panels that turn into just these swatches of ink, probably done with brush by Scott Williams. This is a Scott Williams inked page for sure. So an interesting kind of flashback signposting that you get from Jim Lee, and you see him doing that also in Wildcats as well. It's one of the little tricks in his bag. So now we switch to the past and the present and our location, Berlin. The part of Berlin that was formerly in East Germany, or the former East Germany. Now this particular page I think is inked by Art T-Bear. I think it's the first of our Art T-Bear pages. A patchwork past, pieces, unconnected. And who's this who is got his hand on Logan's shoulder? Turns out to be Creed. It is Victor Creed, aka Sabretooth. He's not identified as such just yet, but he will be in upcoming pages. So Berlin, and was it 30 years ago? So again, in the former kind of democratic German republic, i.e. communist Eastern Germany. And now the present, as Wolverine has been pulled away and bound. And we've got a top-down shot of that. That's nicely done by Jim Lee there. And then this building 30 years ago, and here it is in the present day. And we see Wolverine being taken away by these handlers here. And Dr. Cornelius says there, that should render him harmless. But Tsurayaba says, do not be too certain of that, Doctor. Wolverine's a dangerous foe. We will see ourselves undone if we underestimate him. And now, who's this mysterious figure in silhouette listening in? Well, we'll get an identification for this guy a little later on. But here he is talking to a major of some kind. And he's confirming target, that they have Logan. No sign of Creed. So no sign of Sabretooth. And yeah, the major tells him, stay with them, update me again in 60 minutes, whoever this is. And now, let's turn the page to the horizontal here for our double page spread, and this is a really cool one. Take a look at that. Now, I'm not 100% sure whether this is Scott Williams or Art T-Bear. I'm going to go with Scott Williams here. We're coming towards the end of his inking on the issue, but it reminds me of some of the inking at speed he did on those double page posters, or double page spread posters from X-Men #1. So I'm going to go with Scott Williams. I hope I'm not wrong about that. But what's really cool here is how Wolverine is being strung up with all this wiring about him, and very clearly Jim Lee taking a look at Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X and looking to evoke some of Barry Windsor Smith's visuals from that. And the magenta lighting on Wolverine here, really nicely chosen by Joe Rosas. And then just look at all the work on the back muscles there. So Jim Lee, kind of in a way, showing off, because that's like a notoriously difficult aspect of anatomy to draw, like the back of a heroic character, and he's doing it so well there. So we've got everybody looking at Wolverine. Also, it's a really nice composed anchor image as well, with Wolverine in this X cruciform shape. We've got Omega Red over here with Suriyaba. We've got Andrea here between Wolverine's legs, and Andreas over here, a little screen tone there for the patterning of his suit, and Dr. Cornelius over here on the right as well. Yeah, so Wolverine's conscious and watching everything as they're talking about their plans, and the Von Strucker twins looking for immortality and for themselves and a new Reich. So Suriyaba here is saying, do you see, Doctor? We need the information this man has in his head. They're looking for information on a carbonadium synthesizer that's been lost for nearly 3 decades. So obviously Berlin 30 years ago, and they're going to try and extract that information from Logan's head. And here in the background, you have Omega Red saying nothing, watching, paying attention to everything. And Cornelius says that the subject should be ready for another induced memory inversion in roughly 230 minutes. So again, recalling all of the experimentation that was done on Wolverine, all those head games played with him in Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X, and you can find reviews of Weapon X on the channel as well. So this is a fantastic double page spread. Jim Lee and Scott Williams here at some of their very best work on the title on this double page spread, and we have a nod to continuity. So what's going on is that the Gold Team are dressed in civilian clothes. They're en route to the Hellfire Club for a meeting with Emma Frost. They've been invited to a meeting with her, and that was all shown and told in Uncanny X-Men 281, so Will Spartacio's first issue. But here in X-Men number 5, the story's just catching up, the continuity is just catching up with Uncanny X-Men 281. So the Professor is taking charge here in terms of determining that it's going to be the Blue Team that goes after Logan. Beast here has identified the flight path of a plane that left an airport in Connecticut en route to a military airport in Berlin. So it's his conjecture that that's where Logan has been taken, and that's where the Blue Team are going to track Logan. So really nice shots of everybody, great use of perspective here, and I like the combination of having some of the characters in civilian gear and other of the characters in their X-Men costumes. And I like also the technique that Williams has used here for the texture of Storm's dress as well as Jean's here, but in particular Storm's. Looks like he's using a brush there for that texture over her dress. Nicely done. And then this is an interesting page, and at this point Scott Williams is gone. That's his last inked page, double page spread in this particular issue. And now we're into Wycheck, Rubenstein, and a little bit more RT Bear. I'm not 100% confident that I can point out the difference between Wycheck and Rubenstein on all of these pages, but my guess is that this could be Wycheck and that this is Rubenstein on the inks. But really what it indicates is that this is where the deadline pressure hits, and this is where John Byrne got frustrated with getting the pages out of order for adding the dialogue and narrative captions and trying to figure out what was going on. A page like this with the 12 panels is an indication that for Jim Lee, he was prioritizing having anchor panels elsewhere in the issue, and this is just getting through the story points here where Jubilee wants to go on the mission because she's got experience of the Hand, and she recognized the Hand when they were attacked by them out on the road. And Psylocke vouches for her and says, and Jubilee is surprised. She says, "Hey, thanks, Psylocke. I never would have expected you." Psylocke just says, "Save it, Jubilee. Thank me if you come out of this alive." And that's a nod to the adventures of Jubilee, Psylocke, and Wolverine that date back to Jim Lee's trilogy 3 issues on the title, 256, 257 and 258. And also that they remained kind of like a little trio all the way up to Extinction Agenda. So a little callback to that continuity. Then we've got a moment here between Banshee and Professor X. So Banshee is going after Moira, and Professor X is happy with that. And then we've got a nice little tender moment here between Cyclops and Jean. And Jean tells Cyclops, there's a lot of things we have to talk about, Mr. Summers, like our future. So that's pointing to developments in their relationship. And then we've got Professor X looking at a top secret file for Project Xavier 1964 classified. So that's very interesting, and that's his father, and that's looking forward to, again, storylines coming up. And he puts it into his safe just as Forge arrives in the room, and Forge is sitting down to play a game of chess with him, and we see them do that too in Uncanny X-Men. So that's Lee and Portacio developing a friendship between Professor X and Forge, because remember, Forge was never an X-Man, was never trained by Professor X, but has now become an X-Man over the course of the previous couple of years of stories, going back to Claremont's, the end of Claremont's run. So now we switch back to Germany, 24 hours later in Berlin. So there's been, it seems like, another scenario run, and Wolverine's in bad shape, and Omega Red is taunting him. He's saying, if there is sleep for one whose dreams are places of darkness and despair, at least they are if there is any justice in this world. And Wolverine says groggily, what are you talking about? Don't know you. And Omega Red says, ah yes, Dr. Cornelius's drugs are wearing off, aren't they? You're slipping back into the sweet oblivion your masters created you for. So like, and yet so very unlike, the oblivion in which I've dwelt these past decades. So Wolverine doesn't know what he's talking about. That's a great upshot angle of the side of Wolverine's anatomy there. And again, this is, I would say, this is the kind of shot that Jim Lee was inspired to try by virtue of looking at Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X, because this is the kind of shot that Barry Windsor Smith does so easily. So probably Lee responding to that, doing a good job here. But as I said, like, this isn't Scott William inks, this is not even our T-Bear inks. It's my guess is it's Joseph Rubinstein doing this particular inking job on this page. Here we've got our mysterious figure in silhouette that's being looking in on everything going on here covertly, and he says, I'm going to remix this little party a bit. So what will that turn out to be? Well, he throws out the lights, and this is an interesting little technique here of these 4 black panels, but with Wolverine's claws showing there, the sound effects, the splatter, the implication of blood splatter there with the white ink or paint on the ink there. Yeah, interesting looking page. Also one that saving time, coming up with that device for the panels. This is an Art T-Bear inked page for sure. And the lights come back up, and suddenly Wolverine is holding an item, a canister, and he thinks he's got the stuff, but he's all confused. So Omega Red goes after him. Surrender the canister. Surrender. Sorry, Bob. That word just ain't in my vocabulary, especially if this baby contains what I think it does. Stop. Come back and fight. So where's he gotten the canister from? Was it handed to him by the mysterious figure in silhouette? And then this is an interesting bit of storytelling here. These two pages inked by Art T-Bear for sure. I've seen his signature on these pages on the original art scans online. So definitely inked by him. And Wolverine running in the present, but then mixing into the past. So that's a very interesting technique of running the present into the past there in Wolverine's what would I say, path, yeah, it's interesting. It's cinematic what Jim Lee has achieved in terms of this transition between here and here. I like it very much. So here's Creed And also here is this figure that has been observing everything in the present. They're 10 stories up. They've got this doctor and they're trying to escape something that's chasing after them. We see these tentacles coming up through the floor, and then we're back in the present again. The same thing happening again, and it's Omega Red. So past and present blurring together. And Omega Red says, so we begin again, Wolverine, this time without the drugs, without the watchful eyes. This time the victory will truly be mine. So Wolverine says, no, wrong again. I said I was leaving, and I am. And out he goes, out the side of the building. So he cuts his way out through the glass and jumps. And this is another one of Jim Lee's devices. So the figure in silhouette, except for little details of the costume, and also the canister there that he's carrying to the ground. Now there's a colouring error on this page because I think the colorist Joe Rosas thought it was Wolverine, but it's not. It's Omega Red, and he's shouting out in frustration. I'll not be denied, he was about to say. But when he looks down, there's no body. So Tsurayaba arrives, and Omega Red is enraged, and he grabs Tsurayaba there by the throat, lifts him up, and Tsurayaba says, I resurrected you, and it is I who shall recapture Logan. And see again there that Jim Lee device of the borderless panel. Again, just to make the layout on the page interesting. And let's continue. Now this particular page, I'm wondering who inked this. I don't think that this is RT Bear. I don't think so. I think it could be Bob Wycheck maybe. Could be Bob Wycheck. Yeah, it's intriguing. And this is another page again that I'll have something to say about once I get to it. So in terms of the story here, we have the blue team arriving in the Blackbird, and we've got here our mysterious figure. It's Maverick, that's his name. I don't know that his name is being given just yet. And he's got Wolverine here hooked up to an IV, I think, and he wants him to rest up. And he says, you're going to need all you can squeeze out of your muty healing factor to pull through the beating Omega Red gave you. So Wolverine twigs then. Red, gotta find him, can't let him. But he's in bad shape. So Maverick here says, you're lucky I was there to save you. Now just lie there and heal. It's what you do best, no matter what anyone else says. And once you're fit, we're out of here. But then the alarm goes off, defense alarm. Someone's approaching. He can see everything, and then he's annoyed at what he does see. So Wolverine asks what, who, and Maverick says, guess I should have known Fenris and Matsuo couldn't grab you without expecting trouble to come hard on your heels, Logan. It's the blue team that he's seen on his spy system, his surveillance system. Now this particular page, I am of the opinion, and I've seen the original art scan for this page, only signed by Jim Lee. And I saw a video of Jim Lee looking at, I think it was the art in the IDW Jim Lee Artist Edition. Yeah, this page is there, and it's only signed by Jim Lee. And I think he said in the video when he was flipping through it that he inked this page. And really, Wolverine there, and in particular this panel of Rogue, Psylocke and Gambit, especially Gambit there, and the detail on Psylocke's face, it does look like it's inked by Jim Lee himself. Also, the side of Jubilee's face there as well. Yeah, so this possibly inked by Jim Lee himself. I think so. I think it is. And here is the blue team infiltrating the East Berlin building. And Maverick here saying, too bad for them, because he's seen that they're about to meet the hand ninjas that are standing guard in the building. They're dead. We're out of here, he says, and they're dead. Logan, but Logan's passed out. And then last page. And so who's inking this? Another question. Again, my guess on this particular page is it's Joe Rubinstein. That's my guess for this last page. A lot of panels on this page as well. Malibu, California. Last time that we saw Alison Blair, aka Dazzler, was issue 260. So she showed up in issues 259 and 260 in particular, where she arrived out the other side of the siege perilous, amnesiac. She still is amnesiac, and that's what emerges in this little chat between her and Lila Cheney, where Lila's saying, come on, Alison, you can't have forgotten everything. You were an X-Man, you know, Australia, the Reavers, Roma. She still doesn't remember any of it. She's watching Star Trek there on a big screen. And then there smashes in, out of nowhere, Longshot. And Longshot kisses her and says, we don't have much time, my love, you can't have forgotten this. But she doesn't recognize him at all. And then Spiral arrives, and then Lila teleports the tree away. And one of Spiral's goons there says a teleporter is there always a teleporter. And Spiral says, it doesn't matter. You haven't escaped. Poor Longshot. Haven't you yet realized Mojo always gets his way? And there's Mojo on screen. So this is interesting because Jim Lee's first pencil gig on Uncanny X-Men was issue 248. There's a review of that on the channel if you're interested. And in that issue, Longshot left the X-Men because he was on a quest to try and find himself. And we haven't seen him since then. So we haven't seen Longshot since 248, and we haven't seen Dazzler since 260, and now Jim Lee is bringing them back on this one single page with all of these different panels, and this is sowing the seeds for a future storyline that will tie in with the annuals for 1992. So there you go. The letters here about issue number 2. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men Volume 2, number 5. Let me know what you think about the story in this issue. Claremont's gone, John Byrne scripting it, but this is his last issue scripting it. He's, as I said earlier, gets fed up with the lateness of the pages coming to him and coming to him out of order. What are your thoughts on the developing storylines in the issue and what's being seeded for upcoming months and issues? And if you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video on YouTube. It really helps the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.